As discussed before, when talking about the ordering process, the system then provides full flexibility for the restaurant to create the menus, including unlimited categories, classification of dishes as vegetarian or non vegetarian, and for every item, unlimited modifiers and extras can be configured. So it can range from something simple as no tomato to something more in the line of the build your own dish concept. Super important to highlight here that these modifiers and extras can optionally include an extra cost. So for instance, it is possible, as we saw it in the demonstration when we were checking the ordering process, it is possible to charge extra for things like extra cheese, extra bacon, etc. So we saw that in the example. Additionally, combos, as we mentioned before, can be created, also including multiple variants for them based on extras and modifiers, which can also be optionally adding extra cost. So we have full flexibility to configure your product's offering. As a couple of facts that we already mentioned, we can have unlimited categories. You add as much details as you want for every single product. You can classify the items between among vegetarian and non-vegetarian, tax applicable per product. So in some particular items you might have a tax applicable, whereas in other items you can have a totally different tax. So let's take a look at how this process works in the organization side of things. We had already the opportunity to see this in the ordering process. Now let's see how it works at the organization level. Then as we need to log in into the admin part of the system, then we can just essentially enter user and password, and then we will be prompted to the admin platform where we have access to pretty much everything that will make our restaurant work. So we will not get into the whole set of details here, but we will focus in the menus management. But later on, we will have the option to check all the different parameters that have to do with the restaurant operation and with the configuration and different sets of functionality. Now let's focus in the product, in menu. So as we mentioned before, the menu can be classified in multiple categories. So we can have all the different categories for the items that we wanna that we wanna just have available, and then these categories can be modified in the order. So we can have the categories being organized and then being shown in the customer application according to the position um, that we select for them in the list. Then we also can create any sort of modifiers or extras. It is important to mention that modifiers and extras might have a cost. So you may notice here that particular extras are including a cost where some others might not, right? The modifier is a very basic record, essentially how we want to see it, if it is vegetarian or not, then a code for it, and a price if it has it. Then the characteristics, also unlimited characteristics, can be created in the system. So essentially anything that can help the customer identify the product is a characteristic. So something that can be simple as to share or low fat or suitable for keto diet or kosher or halal, to something more specific like containing, for example, shellfish or organic food or just spicy or nuts or gluten, or this kind of stuff can be characteristics. Also, in order to have the item created, we also have different taxes. So we can create different taxes, different rates that can be applicable to different items. So when we have these elements in place, then we are actually ready to start moving on the process. Every single product will be listed in this module, so we see every single product that we have available, but we can search particular items. We can order the list. We can sort it based on different in the different columns, right? So very easily we can find the product. So let's take a look at what the options are for every single product. The crispy chicken wings is the item that we saw at the very beginning. It was a item that has some parameters or some modifiers that it would require. We essentially have then at this level we have the category that we want to associate this item with. Then we assign a name. We classify it as vegetarian or non-vegetarian. We can define or not the number of calories. If we don't define calories, it will not be shown, nothing will be shown. But if we want to include that as an extra piece of information for our customers, that would be really beneficial. We assign a product code. This code has to be unique for your restaurant. And then you can just add any sort of characteristics, just selecting them all, the characteristics that you want to include for a particular item. You can select and unselect from the list just from the whole set of characteristics that you have available. Then you enter product description. This is what will be seen by the customer. You can add pictures, and these pictures will be just added to the list. You can select them from your drive. Then these pictures are added to the list, right? Or you can just decide to have these pictures directly dragged from your hard drive as you want. I'm selecting just random pictures here just to show in the example. You can select them from your drive and drag and drop them directly into the product details. So you can have unlimited pictures being added to particular items. We assign a tax code from all the lists that we have. We assign a price and a discount in case we want to just keep a discount as an option that is also visible in the customer side. We also define availability of the item. This later on, not in this version, but in the second version, will be the subject for scheduling, so we can sort of schedule the menu. Right now, this functionality is not included in the first version, but will be very soon available. But we will need to select what is the availability of the item along the different options that we have. Then the second part of the product configuration has to do with the extras, with modifiers essentially, right? So we define if the sauces, for example, in this case, we assign a name for the group of options. Then we select out of the complete list of modifiers and extras, we select those options that we want to have available under this particular group. And then we can determine if this is something that we require the customer to respond, so is mandatory. Like for example, if my product includes a sauce, then we mark that as a mandatory parameter, right? So the customer has to respond to what sauce he wants. So probably if he don't want a sauce, then probably we can add just the option no sauce, but still has to respond. And then we can also have options as multi-select, which means that multiple of these options can be selected at the same time. So in this way, we can essentially create any sort of configuration for the item. From these particular cases, simple things like no tomato, no onion, extra cheese, extra bacon, etc., to more complex things like, for example, the type of build your own dish concept, like for example a custom pizza. In my case, I have a custom pizza that essentially describes the item as we mentioned before, but everything is on the extras, on the modifiers. So we can select as modifier what is going to be the dough. So we have the different options and it's required, and all these options have different costs. Then what's going to be the base sauce, what's going to be the cheese base, then toppings can be selected in terms of cheese, in terms of meat, in terms of veggies, right? And then the result will be something like this. You select then the dough, right? Depending on what dough you want, traditional dough, thin crust, thick crust, etc. I like cheese crust. But then also base sauce. The base sauce is for me the best one is tomato and oregano, right? They all have a price. In this case, it's the same price. But then you can select whether or not you want melted cheese in the base. I do want it. And then the toppings, right? What type of toppings we want. For example, I want mozzarella and cheddar as cheese, right? Multiple options, single options. And then as meat, I want to have some pepperoni and probably some salami. That's all what I want. I don't want, well, probably I will add just some mushrooms, and that would be it. That's essentially what I want, right? We can add any additional request. um, so essentially any extra information you want to add. Well, then in this way, as you can notice, through modifiers and extras, we can essentially create or implement that option as the build your own dish concept, right? So modifiers and extras will allow us then to be very simple in the way we're modifying or adding variants to the products, things like no tomato or extra cheese, to something much more, let's say, elaborated that can help us with even things like build your own dish concept. In addition then to the standard products, we can also create combos as we saw them in the previous application. The combos, right, are essentially different items that we're grouping under just one product description. And as we mentioned before, those combos might have specific items that are fixed items and some others that can be variables, right? As drinks or modifiers or whatever we want. So that is essentially what I want to show you here. Then in the organization side, how this is configured is very, very simple. So we define, as we did with the product, we define, well, basic information, combo, name, category. The categories for combos are specific categories, so we only have a couple of categories that are for combos. Um, so we create a category as a combo one, so we can have it available here. Then we add characteristics, tax code, a description, total calories, combo price, discount, and availability. Also pictures, as we are all used to. And then when it comes to combo configuration, then we define what product we want to add. If we call it a single product, that will be just an option that is fixed, as in this case, when we are selecting here, my chicken combo, we have a product that is fixed, crispy chicken wings, is single. And then a secondary single product. This is also French fries. So it's fixed. But then for product 3, we said that this case is going to be multiple. And multiple means, and the combo title is drink, so we define the group as a drink. And this means that we have 3 different options to select from. And to each of these options, we can add a specific extra price. Remember that this is to modify the price of the combo, right? So if we select a soda, as we have described soda with 0, that means that we are not adding any extra value, but if we select a lemonade, it would be 2 more euros, right? So that is essentially what we can configure. And then, in addition to the products per se, which we already defined, it could be single or multiple, then we can also create a set of different modifiers and categories. So we can define modifiers and different, extras and modifiers in the same way we define them for every single product. So we can also have things like modifiers, extra things, or things like sauces, or this type of options available for the customer. So we can create them different products, we can create different combos, or we can just play with these different concepts. Finally, when it comes to the menus management, I'm just going to talk about the complementary menu. Well, this is essentially the different options that we have available when we are at the cart. So when we are at the cart, we can complement our cart with the options that we can select um, from the ones that you have added to this particular menu. So it would be on the restaurant to define what products they want to have as suggestions for the complimentary menu that we will see at the cart.